Hello, welcome back. Time for today's business news. I'm joined by Will Edwards, our business editor. Hello, Will.
Hi, Lou.
The latest on the Eurozone crisis. Are things getting worse or better?
Good question. We've got a few conflicting bits of data out today. Firstly, let's take a look at some good news for France, at least. INSEE, the National Statistics Agency, says that France will avoid a recession, which is better than previously thought. We were expected to be going into a recession in this first quarter of 2012. You can now see, I mean, it's not great, but 0% growth for the first quarter of 2012, and then back to 0.2% for Q2. Not a huge amount, but like I say, better than a recession at least. Meanwhile, Mario Draghi, the head of the European Central Bank, he's given an interview, and he's been saying that the situation in the Eurozone is stabilising at least, and it's through the worst now. So some optimism from him as well.
You mentioned there'd be bad news too. What's going to be worrying Eurozone finance ministers today?
Yeah, I'm afraid Mario Draghi might have jumped the gun a little bit there, because Purchasing Managers Index report came out on Thursday. That is a survey of people who buy for companies, whether they expect to see growth or contraction in the coming months. And that did not have good news. Even in Germany, in fact, business was down in March and new orders fell at their fastest rate so far this year, even in the heart of the Eurozone, which is usually, of course, Germany, usually the powerhouse of the Eurozone economy. So we could be seeing a slowdown even there. This has already had an effect on the price of Spanish borrowing and Italian, of course, those two major economies. There are real worries if they've got into trouble, how it would be possible to bail them out, because they're so huge. As you can see, that's the last month, up to 5.5% there, the price for Spain borrowing. Not, of course, as bad as their 6.7% that they hit last November, but still certainly heading in the wrong direction, even after the European Central Bank, of course, has been pumping in billions of euros in cheap loans to the zone's banks.
How about the markets? How are they looking, Will?
Well, they're not too optimistic at the moment either, I'm afraid. Let's take a look at how things closed in the US on Thursday. That was all broadly negative. That's despite a positive report on jobs, which showed the number of new applications for jobless benefits fell to a 4-year low, but that wasn't enough to perk things up. The S&P 500 falling to its third straight loss, but still, over the course of 2012 so far, things are still broadly positive. Meanwhile, in Asia as well, we can see how things are trading at the moment, and that is also a similar story, of course, not helped by the previous session in the US and that data coming out showing that perhaps there will be further slowdowns in the Eurozone.
Okay, well, today we'll see nominations announced for the next head of the World Bank. And so far, the US is playing its cards very close to its chest. An American has always headed the organisation since it was founded. But the emergence of strong candidates from developing countries has left the Obama administration scrambling to come up with a heavy hitter.
Traditionally, the Europeans head the IMF and the Americans shoe in their candidates at the World Bank. But Washington this time is dithering as emerging economies mount a challenge. South Africa wants the Nigerian Finance Minister Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala to get the job. She was at the World Bank for more than 20 years and is a former managing director.
I think that the Minister of Finance of Nigeria, being appointed President of the World Bank, puts her in a very, very strong position to influence global perception about emerging markets.
The former Colombian Finance Minister Jose Antonio Ocampo is also a contender, so either a South American or an African could emerge and loosen Washington's grip. It's held the presidency since day one after the Second World War. The only leading U.S. contender was former World Bank chief economist and Obama advisor Larry Summers. Dissent against him comes from within the U.S. There's even a Forget Larry website. PepsiCo CEO Indra Nooyi, an American born in India, has also been linked to the job, as well as the U.S. ambassador to the UN, Susan Rice, and even Hillary Clinton. The U.S. is under enormous pressure from emerging countries and has left it till the last minute to propose a high-profile candidate.
And of course, one of the World Bank's key roles is providing development assistance. And in the wake of that coup we've been hearing about in Mali, they've said that they're going to stop sending aid to that country along with the African Development Bank. So, of course, Mali is heavily dependent on aid. That will be a big blow to their economy.
Absolutely will. Okay, Will, next let's move to the world of video games. And it looks like Sony's falling victim to the growing popularity of mobile phones.
Yeah, this is quite a broad sea change that we're seeing in video games at the moment. Of course, by income, it makes more than Hollywood now, video games do. But according to Les Echos, a French business newspaper, the latest PlayStation handheld, the Vita, has sold fewer units in its first month on sale than the previous model did. And it's also selling at a slower rate than Nintendo's competitor to the Sony Vita. So not great news there. This could be because of this move to more people having smartphones and being able to just download games. They may not be quite as immersive as what you might get on a dedicated console, but for a lot of people, they're good enough. Meanwhile, one of the key players in that new app-based economy, Angry Birds, they've got a new app out at the moment, and let's take a look at how they're helping to shake up the video game industry.
Don't ruffle their feathers. Angry Birds are defying gravity. For its new version of the mobile phone game, the Finnish company Rovio turned to the American Space Agency for help.
We've been working with NASA for quite a while already, and they're very keen in cooperating with us, and we got this astronaut, Don Petit, in space to cooperate with us around the launch.
The Angry Birds game has built a niche in the mobile market. It's a hit on iPhone, Android, and now iPad. There have been 700 million downloads since the game was first hatched in December 2009. Fans like the game's low cost, its automatic updates, and ease of use. The success has been built on the popularity of mobile devices worldwide. The sector is performing astronomically. The global wireless game market is expected to be worth a little over 7 billion euros this year. That's expected to jump to 8 billion next year and almost 9 in 2014. That's a growth rate of more than 10% per year. And enough to make most other businesses green with envy. Rovio is stirring growth with partnerships with social network sites Facebook and Twitter, and there are plans in the pipeline to create Angry Bird theme parks at various sites around the world.
Well, Will, I saw that Angry Birds are planning to license their own theme parks for kids, which sounds very exciting, but they're not the only ones doing it.
No, well, Angry Birds, they're going to be sort of activity playpen type parks for kids, but Real Madrid, they're going to have a whole theme park, a sort of a full-scale one, I suppose you could say. They're expecting to put $1 billion into it. It's not going to be in Madrid, though. That's the funny thing about it. It's going to be in the United Arab Emirates, in the Emirate of Ras Al Khaimah, and they are going to sink $1 billion into it. They're expecting 1 million fans to go in the first year. There's going to be a stadium opening out onto the sea, as well as a museum, of course, and a youth training academy. So a real interesting development there in sportainment, one of the backers called it, which is a horrible word, but I think it gives you an idea of what it is.
Would you go?
You won't be catching me there, I'm afraid, Lee.
Okay, that's all we have time for right now. Lorna Shaddock is back in 2 minutes.